All right now, good day, everyone. We are going to move forward from our Knowing Your Brain series. And in this sub-series, we will be considering the subject of love. Hoping to explain love, bring it home, not from the artistic, poetic ways the love gets considered usually, which is the domain where love is generally well known. And it's acknowledged truly that that's about the only way people appear to know about love, only to show that to show that we who work in the neurosciences, clinical neurosciences, neurochemical studies, anything neurologically, it can be from the chemistry of it, the biology of it, the psychology of it, the sociology of it, and all of that. All who work in the brain, where it is well known, love originates. We are beginning to come to terms with the fact that actually there's a lot that can also be explained as to how love comes about. Now, to backtrack a bit and say, the first point maybe to ask is even to make rather is, what is love actually? But that love is a complex subject. It has several dimensions to it. It can be approached from different angles. The word itself has several contexts in which it can be approached. Are we going to approach it from the religious context, even the religious context? Which one? Christian context, love, God is love, and all that that implies. So there's a religious aspect to it. There is also the social, liking inanimate object that you can love something. You can love a game. You can love it. Or are we dealing with the love that we are going to be specific about? The love that has to do with human attachment to another person, one human attachment to another person. So in that context, love has several things that it connotes, like several word pictures that come to mind. As the experts say, includes affection, attachment, delight, pleasure, desire. One other point to quickly make is to say that actually this love does not stand alone in the human experience, in spite of what people would like to imagine. It's not just something that stands alone, that a man experiences as his sole feeling, sole object of desire and all that. I'm beginning to stutter now because it is such a complex topic that's interrelated with all sorts of other human wants and desires and needs. But what is known is that it falls in the range of that aspect of man where we know that most of man's life experiences, life journeys, life wants and needs fall between two main areas: pain and pleasure. There's something about man that makes him make a quick decision whether what is ahead of him will bring pain or will bring pleasure. So we say that in the neuroscientific field, there's that sense in which it is known that man will usually go for what will bring pleasure or reward, something that brings reward, not pain. Something that makes him that's appetitive, if you like. One root word for that would be appetite. Something that satisfies an appetite, compared to aversive, something that is hateful, something that you try to avert, something that you try to go away from. So love is not existing apart. It exists in the context of much of man's desire for things that give him pleasure, that satisfies the appetite. So in that sense, love actually exists together with things like eating and music, enjoying something that gives a man joy, reward, music, sport, Okay? Bonding, social bonding, in that a man can have pleasure in some associations, in some bonding with some people that involve nothing with sexual desire. But of course, we know that when you say love, the next thing that comes to mind is sexual desire. Especially in this context, the next thing that comes to mind is sexual. Sure, that is because love, in that specific sense, is serving an evolutionary function that tilts towards reproduction. The next point that you would like to make before we delve into evolutionary reproductive that I was going to go into is to say, actually, love can be looked upon, especially from the evolutionary aspect, as a basic desire of man that tends towards the animalistic part of man. In that it's been known, evolutionarily speaking, that love appears to be some of the ingredients that the evolution has put into man, into all animate objects, all mammals, all animals, to try to further their own species so that they don't go into extinction. Love pushes the species to bonding. Bonding makes them to select mates. Selecting mates make them to go to mating and then reproducing themselves. That's how they get to, So in that basic animalistic evolutionary sense, love is programmed to make a species reproduce itself. And for that to happen, it has to go, the opposite gender, the opposite sexes have to bond and do the thing that makes for reproduction. So this is going to be a 4-part series, actually, of this section of love. So all of this is an attempt to paint a picture of what we mean by love and how that and what purpose it serves and how it comes about and what are the underpinnings, the things that inform it. So love, in that sense, is towards evolutionary progression of man. Beyond the need for the evolutionary need for progression of the species, love also now takes on other social colors, social meanings, which is the thing that we're going to get to eventually, some of the complications that love entails in man. We see that apparently only in man. In a way of speaking, man is about the only species of mating animals that tends towards monogamy. Of course, I know there are cultures somewhere here and there that polygamy is still rife. But in a sense, even in those cultures where polygamy is rife, you will notice that there's always that preference for monogamy. One man, one woman relationship. Even if that culture promotes multiple partner relationship, man to several wives, you find that even in that place, there's always a sense in which the one man, one woman relationship is to be preferred, and that by the time the second, third woman is coming in, complication begin to happen. Okay, so man is about the only one in the animal kingdom, apparently, that tends towards monogamy. So for the purpose of studying some of the things that go with love, some of the ways neuroscientists have worked is to look for some animals that also come close. There are some animals, wolves, and some species of cats somewhere that also tend to be monogamous. So they've studied those ones and used them as a model of some of the things that they see happening in man's in the situation of love, in love relationship in man. So how does love, attraction start? Where in the brain, if I've been clear enough, and I'm struggling to make complex matters as simple as I can help it. If I've been clear enough, we know that love, again, I said earlier, is associated in the nervous system, in the brain, with other activities of man that are appetitive, that are rewarding, that bring pleasure. So we know that the centers in the brain where man feels good about himself when good things happen to him, when he has just had a good meal, when he has just watch a good music, when he has just listened to something pleasant, we know that they are kind of associated. There are centers in the brain that have been mapped that subserve this function, that perform this function, that direct this function. It's what they call ventral tegmental area. You don't need to bother yourself about those technical terms, but that to say that we have tech parts of the brain. There is a media forebrain bundle. There's the limbic system. There's the amygdala. There's hippocampus. Those are centers of brain where things that have to do with pleasure and the reverse are programmed in a loop. One person's, when you are feeling good, you send feedback to the place where you get sad and to switch that one off. When something that gives sadness to you comes, well, it lights up a part of the brain that controls sadness, if you like, and sends a looping message to the place of pleasure to go down. In that, many of these things have to do with electrical, neurochemical, chemical, electrical firings. So when one part is firing or when chemicals are firing, is acting on one part of the brain, it sends a reverse message to the other next part. So there are centers in the brain that do that. And some of these centers, how do they connect themselves? They connect themselves with the electrical circuitry, electrical wiring. They also connect with some chemicals, chemical messengers in the brain that when one part wants to perform its function, the thing will come out, the chemical will come out, will be secreted, will be produced, it will flow around, and will flow to the next part and tell the person to shut up that, he's the one taking part now. So that's the thing that brings us to several chemicals that have been associated with love in the brain. Some of these chemicals include dopamine, the feel-good chemical. Actually, they are called hormones in the technical term, but we will call them technical chemicals for this discussion. The feel-good hormone, the feel-good chemical, dopamine. Another one that comes close to that is oxytocin, vasopressin. They work together in synchrony, but they do different things in that synchrony even. We'll come to the details sometime later. And other ones that are also associated with them, the ones that make you get excited, ready to go, kind of, action, what we say, the fight or flight chemicals, hormones in the body. These are what we call the adrenaline, sympathetic system that make the heart to race, the breathing to be fired up, the muscles to tense up, ready for action, to fight or to take a flight, to run away. So all of those they work together in a loop of chemical complex interaction to set a man in the tone of that state of love. Which is also why, like we said earlier, other things that also give man pleasure, rewards, you find that they also walk through some of those parts, some of those same experiences that we're talking about now, or feeling good, getting euphoric, feeling this happy mood, joyful mood, and feel good, or everything is dreamy around you. So they all come together in this, it's just that they get directed to the specific purpose for each occasion. For love, for bonding, Of course, the other thing about love is that it then at the back of it also has the sexual attraction part. So apart from that, you are feeling good, but there's the ultimate, sometimes, if you reduce it to that terribly, terribly basic level, the ultimate is for sexual interaction to then happen. Because like we said, it's all geared towards the evolutionary process of furthering the race. And furthering the race, male, female have to come together. And before they come together, they have to first bond. But that's the higher level of man, or of animal, which is man. At the lower levels, they hardly ever bond. A good example I can give for this, because we rear dogs in my home. I've seen how that when a female dog is on eat, in fact, it used to be that when we had a female dog that was on eat and we didn't want them to mate with made as in-house because they may inbreed. We take them to another place where there's a male. It takes less than 1 minute per seconds for the male out there to just decide that this one is on it and climb. There's no bonding. They just go ahead and do the thing. That's why it's kind of different in man. But we take some basic explanation from there, including in lower animals, including the ones that the scientists will program in the lab, to get a sense of what is going on, to be able to explain it and not just leave it to the realm of the artists and the poets alone, where they paint all of their pictures. But what's happening to a man when love and attraction is coming into a picture? Where we say that neuroscientists have worked that out in the brain and found centers that promote the activities that they think are what lead men to those relationships. So, and those activities are, like I said, have different parts of the brain where those activities are cited. And how they come about knowing how to explain what this means is that in the laboratory, using some special techniques to test, including special scanning of the brain. One example, functional magnetic resonance imaging, functional MRI. They're able to put people in states of love, state akin to love, or put them in states where they are having interaction with their loved ones, or give them picture of somebody they know they love and all of that, and take scanning of their brain that has been programmed to show which part of the brain is lightening up for which part of activity. So they are able to fairly consistently, show parts of the brain that light up when love-related, bonding-related, reward system-related to love is taking place. So, which is where they came about some of those centers of brain I talked about earlier, the ventral tegmental area. Somewhere in the base of the brain there, the limbic system, the hippocampus, the amygdala, all of those parts of the brain, and the prefrontal cortex. So that's how they're able to map what part of the brain is doing what. Is firing, pushing towards love, and which part of the brain is firing, toning things down, telling the person to slow things down, force him to make judgments, and all of that. We'll come to the details of some of those down the line. And also that the way we also said earlier that this part of the brain, they don't just work in isolation, each of them. They work all together as a complex orchestra of performance, dictating things that are happening, raising some tones high somewhere and lowering some others by electrical circuitry that is cross-wired to them, and by chemical messengers that they also produce, they also secrete, they also squeeze out, if you like, to go ramifying, to go percolating, to go distributing round about and touching different spots and telling each to rev up things here or to low things down there. We get to some of those chemicals down the line, as some of them we have alluded to before. So that's how it happens. That's how it is. The neuroscientists have worked out which part of the brain does what. So in essence, how does love and attraction happen? Well, again, the point I need to say is I need to backtrack again. It will be assumed that I should just say this is what happened when you see a man that you like, or you see a woman that you like, and you start feeling. Well, indeed, there's some things that happen at that time, but to set the background to say no. Actually, things like this don't happen in a vacuum. They come from a man's own sociological, stroke psychological, stroke religious, stroke spiritual background. They come from those. But that if we reduce it to the basic animalistic thing, when a man sees a woman that he likes, okay, so the attraction for that woman from this vision, from the sight of the woman, will light up sometimes forever. It's like that vision, that visual image of the person, because the man thinks this is kind of thing, which I was trying to say that even that is not just something that happens spontaneously, just anyhowly. It has a background to it. It's just that people like to think, it doesn't happen just like that. It has to be that a man has already formed in his mind the picture of somebody that would think this is attractive. That when he sees this one, then he will think he has seen an attractive person. And that, anyway, when he has seen that person, we'll explain later. When he has seen that person that he thinks he likes, whatever his background is, a center of the brain in the evolutionary sense already alerting to the fact that this is one that will give you pleasure. Because like we said, man goes for pleasure. Man, quickly when man gets presented with a scenario, a scene, a situation, his first judgment he wants to make is it going to give me pleasure? Is it going to give me pain? So anything is going to give me pleasure. So, and pleasure in this sense can be eating, sex, love, and all that. So in this sense of love, when he thinks, okay, this is one woman that I would like to have, it will give me pleasure, lust, love, sex, bonding. When he thinks that those thoughts, it's a part of the brain that will then light up, producing more chemicals, firing all that circuitry, promoting him towards, goading him along, pushing him along, doing the thing that will actualize, the pleasure he's seeking. So that's how it is that the bonding attraction starts. That part of the brain lights up, begins to. In fact, there's also been said that actually, the part of the brain that work for love and all that, they also work for, like I said, I think I said earlier, for other pleasure-giving things. But the one I wanted to now emphasize about, they also work for the things that make people do drug abuse, the taking of hard drug. In that, what are hard drugs that people take anyway? They take things like cocaine, heroin, cannabis, and all of that make them feel good, get them dreamy, feel on high. It is that it was an alchemist kind of thing, a bad chemistry, bad pharmacology, bad drug making situation, if you like. In that the drugs that give people those effects have been so programmed to resemble the system of the brain that people experience pleasure from. So the part of the brain that we have talked about, where some chemicals, cocaine and all that, inside the body, made by itself. That's some of the chemical it uses to, cause those pleasures to happen. People then go and manufacture artificial forms of it, okay, and give you in a high dose. Of course, the brain one that it will make it in programmed way, in a synchronized way. It will come pulsed, regulated, little at a time. Something will have to first start it. Even at that time, your judgment is telling you, this person I want to have pleasure from, is it right for me to have pleasure with this person or not? So all of that will happen. There are other judgment, there are other things that come when the brain is producing its own chemicals that give you feel good situation. Nobody, one that they are produced, the drug they produce that you buy off the counter, that one, there's no judgment. You just feel, all you need to feel is to feel like wanting the pleasure, and you then pursue it and purchase it and ingest it. Take it in. Taking it possibly multiple doses of the usual in the brain and take it in one time, one person, boom, unlike the one that you take little. So that's how people feel good from those things. But obviously, because that's not a terribly good thing or too much of a good thing, if you like, it then causes all sorts of other complications. So that's how it is that the attraction, the bonding that happens when a man or a woman is engaged with the opposite sex for the first time, it is that those parts of the brain that serve the purpose of driving you towards pleasure send things in motion. The electrical circuitry or the chemicals that also work with making love and all that, they then get produced to try and push you towards engaging that activity. First of all, at the basic level, like we said, because you need it to further your race. If you stop doing that, then there's no mating, then there's no reproduction. Then the race finishes at your time, at your generation. But if you keep doing that, then you are able to mate and produce new offspring, the new generation, then your race does not go into extinction. So that's what happens when attraction happens. Then, like we're going to point out that for human being, if there's one realm where human beings can be said to be truly higher animals, this is one of the realms, in that you don't just go for it because it feels like it. There are other good things that you then need to consider. There's a higher judgment that you then need to place on that. Unlike the dog that just sees the male dog that just sees a female dog on it and goes straight for it. I've never met it before, never been engaged with that female before, just runs into it. No. There are things a man needs to consider. Though Of course, you do know also that there's a sense in which being in love is kind of clouds your judgment. We'll talk about that later too. But for now, the bonding happens in the way I've just said. There are chemicals that do perform the function of getting the brain fired up to get that activity going on. Oxytocin, vasopressin, dopamine, the feel good hormones. The chemicals for activation, for action, for fight or flight, fight or take a flight and run away. Activity, motion, action, the adrenaline, norepinephrine, and all of that. So how does it happen that there's love at first sight? Yeah, love at first sight is just an acute.
Travel beyond limits. Nothing required from you except your bags. From Nigeria to zero travel limits. DigiFly beyond limits.
A heavily active situation where a situation of these chemicals happening and just pouring in because the man desire overwhelms him. Again, like I was getting close to before. That doesn't also happen in a vacuum. It happens on the background of what the man has been doing with himself before, what he has been programmed for, what has been programming himself, or circumstances, societies have been programming him towards. If it's been somebody who has been a non, not terribly exposed to the opposite sex, and in a contemplative state, in a self-abasing life, living a self-abasing life before, the frequency of all those love and sex will be less, you agree with me, than from people who have been living in the loose area of life, where there's a lot of man and woman bonding loosely. So, like, for instance, the Scandinavian countries, where they have a fairly liberal legislation and rules and regulations about man and woman relationship. I hear even man and woman can be doing their thing in the park, in the open. It's allowed in law. There's nothing illegal about that. And so they can be in buses with you and you see a girl and boy just kissing themselves all the way through your next 1 hour journey. Meanwhile, all of you guys are standing there. They have no qualms. So obviously in those kind of situations, love at first sight will come faster, right? I mean, it will come faster than in the other. But I haven't said the background. It can happen that a man that's, like I was also saying before, if a man has had his system so programmed, always fired up towards pleasure, so that some of these hormones are already at the background level, they're not totally switched off. In some other people, like I said, those who have chosen to abase themselves for whatever higher cause they want in life, you can imagine that those ones, the system that pushes to pleasure will have been kind of switched on to near zero. And there is also a system that in the brain also pushes towards touching down pressure. That one will be active. The opposite will be true for those who have been living a life of carefree, liberal living, where they are enjoying all the pleasure they could get. Obviously, some of those ones already have things in place, background. So by the time they now come to a new experience, again, there's something about a man's experience in life that also, when things are new, there's that curiosity about it. There's that curiosity about it that makes the curiosity of novelty, of newness, also sometimes make man to want something, even though eventually when he gets acquainted with it, he may find that there's nothing to it. But at the first sight, the newness of it makes him to want to experience it. Okay, so for that reason, the usual basic man curiosity for newness, plus the person has been living a kind of life that set things in motion, put in not at the shutdown level already, may make a man then at the first sight of something that looks like another reward, the kind of reward is being seeking anyway. When the sight of that shows up, the chemical just fired more and more, pushes out more, and the person goes headlong, head over heels, and says he has found. But you notice that to show that that's just a basic animalistic thing that the man is falling prey to. You find that it's not uncommon to find that many times those so-called loves at first sight then turns out to be sour. That the man eventually, what he thought was the in thing he was looking for, no sooner did he get acquainted with the thing before he started wondering, did he get it right at all? Did he not get that? So, but it's because a man allows himself to be that totally. That does not say there's not an occasional exception where indeed, whether the man has been living as a nun before, as a monk, or a woman as a nun before, has not even known anything critical of that. Occasionally, you may get a real love at first sight that turns out to be long lasting, that turns out to be detained eventually. But that's an exception. Like most things in life, we know what we know, but we know that there can be an exception. That exception we can't explain. It has its own explanation. All behavior makes sense with enough explanation. All behaviors make sense with enough explanation. So say someone. So for those ones, you may be that when you get all the explanations you get, they may then make sense out that this one exceptionally works out. But we know that in general, these so-called love at first sight are not rooted in strong foundations for bonding, for longer lifetime bonding to happen. That's how it happens that you have love at first sight. So I suppose we make some sense of how love works out from the brain, from the electrical circuits, from different parts of the brain that are connected towards reward system, pleasure seeking of man, and some of the chemicals that also are used to also make that loop to complete themselves, so that one part is switching on, another part is switching off. Parts that make you feel good are switching on in the parts of the brain, ventral tegmental area, brainstem area, base of the brain somewhere, the floor of the brain, if I may use another term, and other deep parts of brain, the limbic system. These parts are the ones that we know are the feel good parts of the brain that organize the feel good experience, but they also use some chemicals to make that come about to loop over from here to there, to tell this one to light up, to tell this one to go down. Some of these chemicals include the one that make things to go up: dopamine, the feel good hormone, oxytocin, the suppressing, adrenaline. And there's another one that goes to the other part to say, you shut down, we need you to be low now, because you being high will disturb us, will go down. Those are the ones that we call the switching off ones, and they are a good example of that is serotonin. Okay, and occasionally. So these are the chemicals that work, in synchrony. And it is to the extent of to which one is dominant that you decide to go for, or to abstain, to go appetitive, or to move away, to be aversive. So in a nutshell, and that it is when these ones work active, super active, that you may get the phenomenon of love at first sight. Love at first sight. And that whether love at first sight or whether love that gets formed over time, there are regions of the brain that also work to promote judgment, promote discriminative evaluation. So you're able to force yourself to think things through, not just jump. Those other parts are there in the brain. They usually are a bit shut down when a man is getting to be in love state. But over time, they also become active, and they are the ones that help a man to make the final judgment as to what he should do with this new love affair that's been presented to him. So I haven't said all. Like I've explained to you, in the light of some of this explanation, especially with regard to how that love at first sight may be an acute judgment, low judgment situation, I'd like to ask you, do you believe in love at first sight, or you don't believe? Whatever is your opinion, can you please drop your comment in the chat box and share this video with all of your colleagues? Thank you.